And I guess I'll record this as an addendum onto that. This is part 2 of a 2-part video. I ended up taking up way too long on this video, so I figured I would go ahead and split into 2 instead of doing it as one 1 hour long video. So yeah, there's that. Enjoy.
If the universe is random and an accident, why does the world run in such perfect rules?
Is it perfect? So there's an old saying about a puddle, right? A puddle that finds itself in a crevice. And the puddle tells itself, hey, I am perfectly made for this crevice. This crevice was made for me. Ignoring the fact that the puddle will always conform to the shape of the crevice, no matter what size the crevice is. The puddle will adapt to the crevice. The crevice was not made for it. The crevice was made randomly. And yeah, also this is my whole story from Junji Ito. But the idea behind that story is to showcase that it's not always the case that something that looks like it's made perfectly for you to be in it was made perfectly for you in the first place. See, we as humans, we're pattern-seeking individuals. It's part of our survival mechanism. So one of the things that we do when we are pattern-seeking is we try to find ways to connect the dots in nature. If this, then that. If you want to say that everything is perfectly made, then I have to ask you, why does child leukemia exist? Why do we have mosquitoes that can give malaria to people? Why does sickle cell anemia actually give you a buff against malaria? That feels real D&D. If we're talking about perfection, why is everybody so uniquely different? And why do we have genetic cancers that exist within people? If the world is perfect, then why do we have earthquakes and random events of nature that destroy human civilization? If this area was perfectly made and had no mistakes, why is there so many, I don't know, SimCity level errors that seem to happen where the world is concerned? Also, if we're talking about the universe, not the world, what is the universe made perfectly to do? See, this is the fun thing. I can do 2 things with a deck of magic cards. On the one hand, I can take a deck of magic cards and I can scatter them on the ground randomly for a game of 52 card pickup, except my decks are 60 and 100 cards respectively, so we'll fudge the numbers. It doesn't matter. And as you are picking up my individual concrete crusted cards, because I didn't throw them in the middle of a game store, I threw them out in the road, you're on a timer, motherfucker. Get them before the car clips you. As you are picking all of these cards up and noting that they're not worth jack shit anymore, you realize something. You come to a conclusion. Wow. There's a Llanowar elf right next to an Arbor elf, and that's right next to a Findhorn elf. And wow, there's a Birds of Paradise right here as well. All of the 1 mana ramp cards are all next to each other. It's perfect. The deck, as it is sitting on the ground, is perfectly sorted for me. Now, it could be completely random. I could have just grabbed the deck at random, thrown it there. That's how they fell down, but how would you know? Because all you can witness is the after effect. Whether I put those cards individually down in such a way that would guarantee that you would see all the mana dorks together at the exact same time doesn't mean anything, because it is equally likely that they all landed there at random. And you, post hoc, cannot tell the difference, because there is functionally no difference in how they are landed. It is very easy for us to look at the world around us and say that it seems this world was made with no mistakes. It seems like this world was made with no problems. But then you think of all the various problems in the world, And you start to have to find justifications for them. Well, obviously, there's cancer in the world because God sees there to be a reason to have cancer in the world. Well, what reasons would God have to have cancer in the world? Is your God creative enough to envision a world that doesn't have cancer? Or does your God necessarily need cancer in the world he wanted to create? And if that is the case, is your God actually all-powerful that he could not create a world that did not have cancers in it? And now we're here. No matter if God created the world in the way that it's created now, or we happen to get here through various evolutionary circumstance, we're at the cards on the ground problem again. We have no idea which one is the case, and we have no way to verify which one is the case. So we're back to the honest answer being, I don't know. And I wish more people would understand that I don't know is a valid answer because it's an honest answer. I don't have to have a reason the universe was created in a certain way. I don't need that. I don't know, and I would very much like to know. But I recognize that getting that information is a bit beyond me. The honest thing would be accepting that it's a bit beyond you as well.
For example, why does the sun always rise at 4 in the morning? For example, 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning.
It doesn't always rise at 4 in the morning or 5 in the morning. In fact, actually, sometimes it rises at different times. We know why that happens, though. Did you know that as the Earth orbits around the sun, the Earth also spins at the same rate? Not really the same rate, but kind of the same rate. Do you know why that happens? Well, if you want to know why that happens specifically, maybe check into cosmology. There is a reason why planets orbit and spin in the various ways that they do. And each planet orbits and spins in a little bit of a different way. None of it's perfect, and it's not even perfect clockwork. But it works well enough. Like, it doesn't always start at a specific time. If it did, that would be interesting, but it doesn't.
Morning, the sun rises. Why not does it rise at the night at midnight?
Well, why wouldn't the sun rise at midnight? Because then it wouldn't be midnight. The thing that makes midnight, like we assigned midnight as a time because of the sun. We're back at the 52 card pickup problem again. We assigned our time. This is why I've said multiple times that time, at least the way that we generally understand it, is socially constructed. We constructed the idea of midnight because we measured an amount of time that the sun was not hitting the side of the earth we happened to be on. Midnight is a social construction. Noon is a social construction. Like, those are things that we had happen. We looked at how the world was operating around us, and we constructed a system to allow us to measure what was happening with the world around us. Now, should be noted, time-space, that concept, that theoretical concept, it is not a social construct. It moves in and of itself. It does its own thing. But time, the measurement device, that's a thing we made. And we made it after the world had already been turning. Why does the sun not rise at midnight? Because we constructed midnight for a time when the sun was not there. But, fun fact about time. Everybody here is familiar with the idea of a leap year, right? Do you know why we have things like leap years? Glad you clarified you're talking about the measurement device this time. I've always been talking about the measurement device. People just don't listen well. But I also needed to do the clarification about time-space, because everybody's like, time is a theoretical concept that exists without you. No, the fuck it isn't. Time-space is. Shut up. Time-space is the thing that is relative. Stop. Stop it. But yeah, no, a day isn't actually 24 hours specifically. So if we did not have a leap year, you know what would happen eventually? We actually would have, or time, space, or space-time. Space-time, not time-space. What am I doing? Anyway. If we did not have a leap year, eventually we would have the sun rise at midnight. that exact thing that you're saying would not happen because your God perfectly created the world, that actually would happen, because it turns out none of that stuff was perfectly made. There's that margin for error, and we fix that margin for error by using the leap year as our tool. So, why does it not happen? Because the way we constructed time means it doesn't. But if we had constructed it differently, then yes, the sun would be coming up at midnight. It would just take a few generations, but it would happen.
Why do I not see the sun at 12 in the midnight? Why do I not see the sun? I want to see the sun in the night. Why?
Because of the leap years. Literally. The solar system is a very precise orbit with no mistakes for millions of years. If you want to see the sun at midnight, the time midnight, then just get rid of the leap year, and eventually you will. Eventually, that is a thing you will see.
Explain to me. Why does the moon rise up at a certain time, and why does the earth have a very specific orbit?
Again, ask a cosmologist. That answer is not a... that's a question that's not a question for an atheist. This is a weird thing that happens a lot of times with questions for atheist videos. Questions for atheist videos assume that an atheist is an expert in philosophy, cosmology, biology, tectonic plate science. Like, they assume that you are an expert in all of these things, because you must be. Because if you were not an expert in all those things, you wouldn't have answers to all those things. The answer for a lot of these people tends to always be, just be a theologian. You don't have to have a specific answer for any of these things if you can just say, God did it. And I don't find that to be a very satisfactory answer. So, why does the Earth orbit the way that it does around the sun? Short answer, gravity. Long answer, ask a cosmologist. Ask somebody who actually has a degree in this, who has studied in this, even autodidactically. But find somebody who is an expert in it. And that person will be able to give you a good answer for this. But this is not a question for an atheist. What you are committing here is what's called a scope error.
Why does the 8 planets of the solar system have a very inline orbit? Why?
Because again, that's how gravity works.
Does that mean it's random and an accident? Everything is formed from a boom, bang, bang, and then we are here.
Technically speaking, less a boom and a bang and more a rapid expansion. But if we were to, again, this is talking about astronomy in a way that I'm going to get some stuff wrong when I say this, but we have the great expansion of the singularity that we know as, we call the Big Bang. That's like the worst name for it ever because it gets used in this derogatory way all the time. But we have that happens, and then as the various particles from that singularity coalesce outside of the realm of that, we call it the T=0 event, they start to form clusters, and those clusters start to form things more akin to planets. And there are other things that happen that create the various chemicals and minerals and everything else that we would call basic stardust. I'm getting a lot of shit wrong. But basically, it's a thing that happens over a long period of time. A very long period of time. And we can replicate parts of that process. But it is a thing that happens very, very slowly in nature, in reality. So, everything happened randomly? Yeah, again, we're at 52 card pickup again. Yes, everything happened randomly, but you individually might find patterns within that randomness that make it look less random. But that's just you being human.
Like, seriously. We just exploded. First we were fish. Then we became monkeys. Then monkeys went to cavemen. Then cavemen became humans. And evolution stopped on humans.
No, evolution never stopped on humans. So, let's talk about how evolution works. Yeah, no, that's why I kept on saying expansion, not explosion. So, Humans went from some type of fish, then a lizard, then a monkey, then a caveman to a human being. So let's break this down. It's more like there was a part where we had a reptile stage in evolution, but it's not that we were reptiles at one point and then became what we are now. We have nested hierarchies. Let me show you an example of a nested hierarchy real quick. This might help you with this. This will help you. So this is an older video,
etc.
And I don't want all of this stuff, but it's from a user named Walter John. But let's take a look here. This might help you out a bit.
This type of relationship is a nested hierarchy. Each group can be divided into smaller groups, representing lineages which are more closely related. In the same way, all living organisms seem to be related in a nested hierarchy of relationships. Based only on anatomical, genetic, and embryological evidence, we would conclude that all life shares a common ancestry from a common ancestor. One subgroup of living things form more complex cells and are known as eukaryotes. Some eukaryotes became multicellular and are known as animals. Some animals develop nervous and muscular tissue and are known as metazoan animals. Some metazoans developed a brain and bilateral symmetry and are known as bilateran animals. Some bilaterans developed a body cavity and are known as coelomates. Some coelomates developed a specific pattern of early embryonic development and are known as deuterostomes. Some deuterostomes developed a notochord, a pharynx with slits, homologs of the liver and hypothalamus, and are known as chordates. Some chordates developed a larger brain and are known as craniates. Some craniates developed the beginnings of a backbone and are known as vertebrates. Some vertebrates developed jaws and are known as gnathostomes. Some gnathostomes developed a specific pattern of bony elements and became the first osteichthyons. Some bony fish develop lungs and specific bones in their fins and are known as sarcopterygians. Some sarcopterygians adapted to life on land, develop limbs, and are known as tetrapods. Some tetrapods increase their adaptations for land, including the ability to reproduce on land, and are known as amniotes. Some amniotes developed hair and the ability to produce milk for their young and are known as mammals. Some mammals develop live birth and are known as therian mammals. Some therians gave birth to their young in an advanced state and are known as placental mammals. A group of placentals adapted for life in the trees and are known as primates. One group of primates advanced their nervous and muscular systems and are known as anthropoid primates. One group of anthropoids developed color vision and other advances of the nervous system and are known as catarrhine primates. One group of catarrhines modified their tail inside their pelvis and became known as apes. One group of apes became larger and are known as the higher apes. Some higher apes diversified in Africa as African apes. One lineage of African apes would lead to chimps and humans. After diverging from the chimp lineage, one group would produce a variety of hominoid species, which would eventually produce a variety of human species, which would eventually produce modern humans and you.
So, the reason I show that in its entirety, and I would suggest subbing over to Walter John, WalterJahn. Reason I suggest that, reason I show that in its entirety, is to show that that's how we get humans. So when you're like, there was a fish, then it became a lizard, then a monkey, then a caveman, that's a really simplified way of describing it. And it's not entirely accurate. What was given there with the nested hierarchies is much more accurate. Said, but how do we get Nekos? By accident. All of us are mistakes. But, point is, when you say that, you are asking me to be a microbiologist, basically. You're asking me to be an anthropologist. You're asking me to know all of this. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to divert to somebody who is more an expert on this than I am. But I'm okay doing that. I don't have to consult a book that says that it's got the answers to everything in order to do that. I can simply take the information that you've given me and go, okay, I will ask somebody who does know. Ask somebody who can know. Explain it like fish, lizard, monkey, human. That's how we explain it to small children. Yeah, that's kind of the issue we have there, Sith Lord Gamer. That's like when we say that the sun is a ball of gas, because we said that there's 3 primary states of matter, and we haven't really quite talked about plasma quite yet. And then later on, we have to be like, we kind of lied about the sun. It's actually plasma, not gas. That's the same thing. So what this shows is you have a very simplified understanding of how evolution works, and as a result, you find it very confounding. And I get it, I understand, but hopefully, the sun is a massive incandescent gas. The sun is made of blazing combinations of gases. These gases are actually in the form of plasma. Plasma is made of a state of matter that is similar to gas, but with most of the particles ionized. The sun can be whatever it wants to be. But that said, let's go back to the video itself. Hopefully, that entire explanation was enough for this particular point.
Why do humans do not evolve anymore?
We do evolve. We actually are evolving constantly. There are constant mutations within humanity that happen as we speak. Hold on one second. I got you here. So actually, within humans right now, the ability to digest lactose is an example of adaptive evolution in human lineages. Digesting lactose, especially from other animals, is not a thing that humans were able to do 200, 300, 400 years ago. At least not to any good degree. Like, in general, that is a big thing. There's random genetic drift that happens within various groups of humans. That's a just in general thing that happens a lot with all species, like all the time. The evolution is slow. Fuck, human civilization will be gone before we get any morphological changes. Likely. Resistance to various diseases is also part of human evolution. I gave an example ages ago in this video about how sickle cell anemia gives one a resistance to malaria. That is an example of human evolution. That is an adaptation to an environment around you that evolves with humans going forward, giving you resistance to various diseases. Blue eyes are also another recently evolved trait. It came from a mutation in a single human ancestor about 6,000 to 10,000 years ago. The mutation affected the OCA2 gene, which codes the protein necessary for producing melanin. The ability to breathe in higher altitudes is also an evolutionary adaptation for humans. So, another one is that for the last 20,000 years, human brains have been shrinking. It doesn't mean we're getting dumber. It's that as the structure of society progresses forward, we have less of a need for specialized memory. And as we have less of a need for specialized memory for holding as much as we do in our fucking gray matter, we tend to get smaller brains going forward. It doesn't make us dumber, but one recent example of this has been that people, by and large, are not as good at retaining data these days as they were 20, 30 years ago, but we're really good at cataloging and indexing it. We're really good at referencing it. We, as a society of people, have gotten better at referencing and recalling data, but we've gotten infinitely worse at recalling it internally as opposed to externally. Suzu says our brains have also developed more wrinkles, I think, and that could be true. But that one I know less about. So, fun fact, we as humans are actually evolving still. But evolution is not always vast and morphological. Sometimes evolution is small, and those small changes that happen within a species slowly build up and produce morphological changes over time. Think of various types of fish. Many of them are morphologically different, but they all came from a common ancestor, and the various types of fish that came from that common ancestor changed morphologically bit by bit, generation after generation, to lead to the diverse species we have right now. That happens with everyone and practically everything. But let's go ahead and take a look even further into the video.
Why do I not have wings? For example, I evolve into a bird.
Why don't we have wings? Because we don't have a purpose for them. So wings actually were an adaptation for some animals for protecting their eggs. They were an adaptation that allowed them to keep eggs more warm, and therefore more wings were produced in those populations of animals because it was easier for them to have their eggs survive in colder climates. So animals with wings ended up developing not so much for flight initially, but for the ability to guard their offspring. And then over time, wings being used for gliding meant that certain subspecies of them would proliferate more by being able to avoid predators by gliding, and eventually selective adaptation would develop that ability to glide into more hollow bones that would allow for flight on top of gliding. That, we haven't needed that as humans, because if you look at the nested hierarchies that we showed before, we as humans did not evolve in a tree of species that ended up needing wings. We evolved down a tree of species that adapted for land walking and living in trees that we climbed.
Why not? So that's my third question now.
Wait, why do monkeys in a zoo no longer evolve into humans? So it's because they are part of a different branch of that tree. Like, we're all from the same tree that says that we're all mammals. We're all from the same tree that says that we're eukaryotes, but they're evolving in a different direction. We evolved in a direction, they evolved in a different direction. The idea that evolution is a linear thing as opposed to a really complicated tree with a shit ton of nested hierarchies is one of the biggest misunderstandings when it comes to how evolution works.
That's my third question now. The fourth and last question: why are you an atheist?
So before he clarifies, my brief answer to this question as it exists right here is, I don't have a good reason to believe in a god. I don't. Like, I just don't have a reason to. When I think of the various types of deity, I think of deities that I don't have a reason to believe exist. If we're talking about an omni-deity, then we're also talking about a deity that necessarily has various logical contradictions within itself, and I don't really see a reason to believe in something that is logically inconsistent by its mere existence. If we are talking about various polytheistic deities, then I have never experienced a communication mechanism from any of those deities that I could not chalk up to my own personal hallucination or sleep deprivation or what have you, or just general post-hoc rationalization. I haven't experienced anything that would lead me to believe that a deity exists. And even if we're talking about a deistic deity, one that created the world and then fucked off, I also don't see a reason to believe in that brand of deity either. because that is just, to me, kind of begging the question. Like, okay, if you believe a God created everything, now we are asking the question of why and how. How did you come to that conclusion? For me, I don't have a reason to come to that conclusion. For me, getting to a God requires that communication mechanism first. If we're talking about a God that does not communicate with people, why are we talking about the God in the first place? It doesn't give a shit about us. Why should we give a shit about it? Sky says, wow, looks like I walked into a metric ton of stupid here. How's it going, Sky Comet? Thank you for the 50 bits. So, I don't know. I guess the better question is, if your God is all-knowing, all-powerful, and all-good, why hasn't your God seen fit to convince me that I should not be an atheist? Why hasn't your God seen fit to convince me that they are real? And I'm not... I recognize, like, I specified a type of omni-deity for this, which would be, you know, the Abrahamic gods. Why did your Abrahamic God not convince me? Was it outside of his power? Was it outside of his want? Which of these was it?
Seriously, why are you an atheist? So, did you ever research about any other religion?
Yes, I spent 18 years researching Christianity. I was a Christian for that amount of time. I wanted to be a theologian when I grew up. Islam, I actually, while I was working at Aldi, was listening to the Quran in form of audiobook. Judaism, I ended up having to study as an aside while I was trying to learn more about Christianity because, I mean, the first half of the Christian Bible has quite a lot of parallels, gee wonder why, with Jewish literature. Hinduism, not as much. Didn't learn as much about Hinduism. Polytheism, I've learned a decent bit about various forms of it, but that happens to be because I hang around a bunch of polytheists. So you just kind of end up absorbing some shit via osmosis. So, did I ever give time to research them? The answer is yes. Yes to at least 2, and technically an extended 3rd, and maybe even an extended 4th if we're being super literal. Vanilla Winners, thank you for the Prime subscription. So, am I just good at insulting religions? Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely. I would think that I personally am the best at insulting them. I just don't do it very often. Now, individual deities within your religion, sure, I'll insult all day long because I think they can take it, honestly. Like, let's talk about Jesus. What's his claim to fame? Getting nailed by a bunch of Romans? Getting penetrated by some dudes in front of a crowd of people? I don't know. Sounds kind of gay. Heard he was well hung, though.
Example, Islam, Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism, Buddhism, any other religion. Why? So, is your purpose just to wake up, brush your teeth, go to school, or go to work?
Okay, so you just said the same thing you said at the beginning of the video again. That's not very interesting. Let's actually read what you put on the slide, though. If not, then you're just living like a lost person in the middle of a desert. You never gave time to learn about religion, just insult, insult, insult. Here's the thing. I don't need to learn about every religion to know that I don't want to be a part of one. I don't need that. I don't. Because for me... Hi, Growlith. Hi. Stop. For me, if I'm being honest, I spent my time as a Christian. I spent my time reading the Quran. I've spent that time already. I don't need to do it again. I don't want to do it again. I'm perfectly happy living as I am, as an atheist. And why would I insult? Just as a brief thing. If you happen to be part of an exclusionary religion, a religion that necessitates that everybody else convert to yours, or they will burn or be punished or anything like that, I'm going to be honest, I don't actually feel bad about insulting the deities within that religion, because within the canon of those religions, those deities have created a system which leads to punishments that do not measure up to the crimes they are being measured against. It doesn't matter to me, personally, as an atheist if I insult a deity that I don't believe exists, or B, I believe to be an unjust asshole. So, by all means, be upset at me for insulting Jesus the way I did just a little bit ago, but also understand that that same Jesus technically created a world that necessitates that I'm going to burn in hell, and given that he's all-powerful, that's his fault. I think he can take a little bit of a joke.
Purpose just to wake up, brush your teeth, go to school or go to work, and go to home, eat, sleep, and die. Sleep forever. Is that it? So this just shows nothing, to be honest. You guys live in this world. You live once. You live happy every day. You do not see this life as a test. For example,
I mean, I do see life as a test. Life is a test to see whether you come out the other side a good person, or you get converted into being a villain during it. Like, I do see life that way. The difference is that I think that is a test that happens because we live in a society, whereas you believe it's a test that's been given by an all-powerful creator.
if a teacher gives you a test, and the teacher then takes your test and gives you full marks. You didn't revise. You didn't do anything. You were playing all day, playing. The teacher just takes your exam, make you full mark, pass. Will that be
Take this into reality. If there's only heaven and no punishment, then what's the purpose for me to worship and seek guidance from God? I can just enjoy life and guide to heaven. So again, why do you need to worship and seek guidance from your God? Why does your God need you to worship him? That's a thing that I don't understand. If God is already all-powerful, if he's already all good, if he's already, like, omni-everything, why does he need you to do any of that? Why does he want you to do any of that? Why should you believe that you need to do that with him? And seeking guidance from God, I can understand the appeal. It's like plugging in a Game Genie and just, going ahead and using the cheat codes in it. If God is able to see into the future, then of course he would know exactly what you need to do. It would be like that episode of Rick and Morty where Morty was using the death crystals to see where he was going, like make sure that he could get his perfect life dying in the arms of Jessica. That's basically what you're asking for there. I can see the appeal. I really can. But it's just not for me.
be very just of the teacher, a man that did very hard work and revised for the whole night
We're still on the test
and got full
analogy.
mark, while the other guy was
I'm
playing,
talking about the things you
drinking,
wrote.
sleeping, eating, and then got full mark. Is that really?
Is it really a logical or scientific perspective? Yes. Logically, I do not have a reason to believe in a God, as one has not been presented to me that I find convincing. Scientifically, we can't demonstrate a God. Now, understandably, the reason we can't demonstrate a God scientifically is because if God is supernatural and science categorically deals only with the natural world, then science would never be able to prove a God. It's a category error to believe that it can. So if a God does exist, you won't discover that God with science, because that God is not a natural phenomenon. They're supernatural. Natural phenomenons stem from them and the things they do, but they categorically are not natural. So science isn't going to find them. However, if we are looking at things purely scientifically, then what we are using is a type of materialism. Now, it's methodological naturalism is really what it is. Naturalism for the purpose of operation. Science doesn't say that the universe is naturally naturalistic. It does not say that it is purely naturalistic, but science as a tool is functionally naturalistic because it has to work within things that it can operate in, within things it can predict, within things it can measure. So you can probably rule out gods with science. You can't. I hate to burst the bubble on that, but that is an error of category. If gods exist as supernatural deities, then they, by their nature, are not measurable with science. We're then left with, are there good reasons to believe in those supernatural things? I personally don't think there are, but I know that there are people who do think there are. The person who made this video thinks that there are. Some of my best friends think that there are. I don't think there's anything wrong with that so long as you're not taking that belief and then going forward with it and forcing other people to believe it. I think the proselytization, the authoritarianism, those are my problems. Not the religion itself, not the God belief itself. The kill gift of charity doesn't matter. That's just a reiteration of the other question. And it's all that fun stuff.
What you think is that your logic in your brain, you research in your brain, and you research in your brain, think, use your brain meats, activate your brain cells, your brain been activated for a long time. So that's it. These are my 4 questions, and I want you to research more about religions.
Okay.
Research about Islam, research about Christianity,
Did them
research
already.
about any other religion, any free time that you have, any spare time that you have.
Okay.
Give it just a small moment to research about religion, to research the figure of God, to research
Okay.
the figure of Allah,
Did it.
and to research how this world is all in line perfectly.
So you want me to do a confirmation bias there? I am not going to research how everything is aligned perfectly, because that is not how we do research. We do research to see if things are aligned perfectly, not research to see how they are aligned perfectly. Researching to see how they're aligned perfectly assumes that we already know that things are aligned perfectly, but that's not really how things work. That's not how research works. Research is supposed to be to figure out if something is one way or is not how it is a way we already know. Salem says, sounds like he's having the existential crisis. Could be. Vanilla Winners for the 500-bit says, a radio station in my area has been accepting Ken Ham's money to let him spew his BS. He's been speaking about CRT recently. It's Ken Ham, so yeah, Ken Ham shouldn't be talking about anything race-related. The dude who says that we don't come from a common ancestor with monkeys looks exactly like a chimpanzee. Dude has no room to talk. Anyways, I'm probably going to have to split this into 2 videos. This is an hour